In today's show, the Blazers hold off the Hawks late, and Deandre Ayton is just straight up dominating. Welcome, Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, recap the Blazers' win over the Hawks. Deandre Ayton continues a dominating streak. He's been really good of late, and he was excellent in this one. He got a bunch of help from Anfernee Simons, who recovered from a stinker first quarter to have a big game for the Blazers. We'll talk about both of those gentlemen. Huge plays from the role players in the final 45 seconds. And I want to close the show talking about scoring on the decline across the league and how the NBA has maybe stepped in to slow down the barrage of buckets, or at least getting some easy ones. That's what we'll do in today's show. Let's do what we do, though. Fastest recap in the West. This one looked bad early. It looked like it was going to be a tough one to I don't know. I find a way to make a show. I've soldiered through worse, but like, this one did not look good early. They were down 24. Blazers down 24-17 after one. Anfernee Simons starts 1 of 5 in the first quarter, and it's like, on every time it's first touch, he turns the ball over in a double team. He goes 1 of 5 in the first quarter. Blazers have 17 points against an incredibly shorthanded Hawks team starting Vit Krejci and Wes Matthews. It's like, if they lose this one, and they score 85 points in this one, we're going to have to say some mean things on the podcast, right? I know people are like, there's certain people rooting for losses or whatever, but like, you don't want them to look like they were about to look, and then they just got going. 30 points in the second quarter, 35 in the third. 52-47 Hawks at the break. Deandre Ayton 18 and 8 at halftime. Dejounte Murray had 24 on 10 of 13 shooting in the first half. But Blazers offense kept rolling in the third quarter. They take the lead with a dominant run to flip what was a 16-point first half Hawks lead on its head. Blazers go up 82-75 after 3, and they basically held the Hawks at bay at the end of this game. It looks like, it was like, they never led by double digits, but they were up by basically 5 or 7 the whole second half, but they couldn't quite put the Hawks away, and they kept doing things just enough to leave the Hawks in the game. So when it gets a little bit dicey is closing it under a minute, and the Blazers come down and they try to just milk some clock, do the sort of prevent offense, which they just like let Anfernee Simons go. But Anfernee Simons at this point has 35 or whatever it is, 34, I guess, at the time. So it's like letting him just go. It's like, I think it's fine if you just need one bucket up 4 to seal the game. But they, go way late clock, and he takes a really tough runner, and the Hawks come the other way quickly. Dejounte Murray gets all the way to the paint and misses a layup. This is a would-be game tying layup with under a minute left, but Clint Capella keeps the rebound alive. Dejounte Murray ends up grabbing it. It cycles back out to Bogdan Bogdanovic, and Bogey steps into a 3. He's been bad in this game. He's 3 of 14 when he's about to let this one go. Maybe 3 of 12 because I think he took one late. So, or 3 of 13 rather. But he's been bad and like capital B awful. But it's like a top of the key 3 that looks like it's clean, and it's going to give the Hawks the lead, except Matisse Thybulle closes out to the ball, gets fingertips on it, blocks a 3-pointer. The NBA's league leader in block 3-point attempts, according to the Blazers broadcast, gets a huge block with 45 seconds to go. The Hawks don't have to foul because it's only a 2-point game. They do end up fouling, not on purpose, but just like after some defense. Every time he drives and gets a foul on a body blow, and he hits 2 free throws, so puts it back to a 4-point game. So it was going to be a layup to tie it or a three-pointer to take the lead. Instead, Blazers get a huge block from Tease, 2 free throws from Ant, push the lead back to 4. The Hawks come down, and Dejounte Murray, who's having a big old game, hits a 3. It's a 1-point game with 17 seconds left. The Hawks need to foul, but they don't need to foul right away. Blazers have to call timeout to advance the ball. They get it into Deandre Ayton. They do pretty much foul right away. I thought they went a little early on that, but DA is a pretty good free throw shooter. It's good news for the Blazers. He makes the first. Puts the Blazers up 2, and now all the Hawks need to do is, if he makes it, fine, 3-point game, you get a 3 off. If he misses it, get the rebound. They put 2 centers in to get the rebound. They put Fernando and Clint Capella in there. Comes off the rim, hard to the right. Toumani Camara slaps it to the corner, keeps it alive, chases it down in the corner. I thought DeAndre Hunter straight up fouled Toumani Camara on purpose, grabbed his arm. That would have been better for the Hawks. Instead, cycles the ball back out to Anfernee Simons. He dances away from Clint Capella, who doesn't realize he needs to foul. Hawks now have to foul. In a 2-point game, Anfernee Simons hits 2 free throws, pushes a 2-point lead to 4, and the Blazers hold on to win. That's their fastest recap in the West. Blazers win 106-102. The final 45 seconds were fun. Like Matisse Thybulle, huge block. Toumani Camara, huge offensive rebound. And complimenting the plays from the Blazers' 2 best players on the court tonight, Deandre Ayton and Anfernee Simons, who made free throws to ice the game. DA made 1. Ant makes 2, but the big plays came from the role players to win this one. Deandre Ayton finished with 33 points and 19 boards on 15 of 20 shooting. Anfernee Simons, after a 1 of 5 first quarter, it's like, oh no, finishes 9 of 18 to close the game. So shot fine, 50% from the field for the final 3 quarters. And scored 34 points after that first quarter. 33 points after that first quarter. It was going to be bad, and then it wasn't bad. He had a really, really solid close to the game. Hit a huge 3 with 2.5 minutes left to push the lead back to 6 as the Blazers were trying to pull away. I thought Ant was really good in this game. 7 boards and 8 assists for him, filling out the box score. Just 1 turnover in 43 minutes. Simons was really good. No Jeremy Grant in this game. Still no Jabari Walker in this game for the Blazers. So they started Delano Banton and Chris Murray. Like I said, on the other side, Dejounte Murray had 40 on 15 of 29. Did not shoot nearly as well in the second half. 5 of 16 after halftime. The Blazers went to his own, and that really helped them slow him down because they could guard him with multiple people, and they were just like, we're going to zone Murray, we're going to force him into shots he doesn't necessarily want to take. Let him get, let him see multiple bodies. It's kind of a way of double teaming without true man-to-man principle double teaming, because you can send 1.5 and then help out from that 1.5 because of your principles. But you still got to play man. You still got to match up in a zone in the NBA. But it's a way to show more bodies while sticking to some man principles. And they just said anyone else. It's going to be anyone else. And Bogdan Bogdanovic goes 3 of 15. Wes Matthews 1 of 7. DeAndre Hunter 4 of 12. Vit Krejci is 2 of 4, but he's not going to bomb away. He's not going to take. My man Vit's not going to take 15 shots to really have it make a difference. And it was just okay, Dejounte Murray's going to shoot. Dejounte Murray's either going to shoot a hard shot or it's going to be anyone else taking jumpers. And the Blazers held on with that strategy down the stretch. They win this game though because DeAndre Ayton was great and he's been great and Ant's been really good. Let's talk about those 2 gentlemen in the second half. DeAndre Ayton is putting it all together finally for the Blazers. We'll talk more about him and more about Anfernee Simons in the second segment. First, I want to tell you about PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made easy. America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. Easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. You pick more than or less than on a 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then you'll win some money if you get it right. And right now it's demon time over on PrizePicks. You can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Demons and Goblins, the newest and most exciting way to play over there at PrizePicks. Squares marked with a red demon or a green goblin get you different payouts, and you can win 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. That's turning $10 into $1,000 if you get right on demon time. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. The promo code is LockedOnNBA, and they'll match you dollar for dollar on your first deposit up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right. Deandre Ayton came in to the Blazers media day and told us, the assembled media there, that his name was Dominayton, because that's what he does. And then he started out the year and he wasn't good, and it was like, oh, that is not a nickname that you should bestow upon yourself if you're going to struggle as much as he did. And he did struggle, and that's like the real truth of it. The also real truth of it is over the last 6 games, and even more than that, over the last 15 games, hooping, absolutely hooping. Deandre Ayton has had he's had 30 and 19 in 2 of his last 3 games. He finished tonight with 33 points on 15 of 20 shooting, 19 boards, including 4 on the offensive end. He gets a block, he gets a steal, he gets an assist. He's not going to fill out the box score in the way that like some other sort of more gaudy centers are gonna put up there, right? He might not do that. But what he does well, he does so dang well, and I think that's the key that the Blazers have figured out. What does DeAndre Ayton do? Where does he want the ball? How are we going to get it to him? And what is the way that we can maximize his unique set of skills? And I think that's the real truth to this season. The Blazers just figured out how to use DeAndre Ayton. Coming into this game, over his last 9 games, he was averaging 20.8 points and 14.3 rebounds on 63% shooting. And then tonight he has the monster game that he has, 33 and 19. And I think there was a play in the fourth quarter. They come out of a timeout, and this really speaks to kind of like how they've figured it out. They did something you just don't see teams do. This is just like the type of play, the type of action. It's an action more than a play, but type of an action that you just straight up don't see teams do in 2024. They got the ball on the left, or ball in the middle of the court. Anfernee Simons passes it to the left wing, and then he goes to set a screen away to the low block. And typically these little down screens from guards to free up a center are just, you free up a center and they come all the way up to the ball, and you set a screen, and you just want like some movement to get everybody kind of to get his man, DeAndre Ayton's man, and the ball handler into sort of like having to guard moving parts. So the center is coming up to the ball as the ball is coming down at him, and you kind of make guys make multiple decisions. But instead, the Blazers, they're not doing that. They're setting a screen, this little like a down screen action, to get DeAndre Ayton a mid-range jump shot. He comes off a screen from his point guard, catches at 15 feet, and curls right into a jump shot, like straight out of 2004. He came and took a catch and shoot jumper from 16 and a half feet, 17 feet, like just a step behind the free throw line. They wouldn't have done that for him early in the year. They didn't know how to use him. They figured it out. It is a little bit challenging because DA wants the ball like at the foul line. He basically from the elbows, either elbow on either side, but like that about a step outside of the lane and catching it at 15 feet. He doesn't really want to catch lower because he wants to be able to face up and use his face up game. He doesn't want to catch out wider. He doesn't want it he wants it in the middle of the court. So creating ways to get him in the middle of the court and just not running straight up pick and rolls for him. Or if you do run a pick and roll, run it wide so he can get back to the middle, or run those little actions that get him catches right there. Like they've just figured out how to use him, and he's delivered by shooting 15 of 20. Like he takes 2 free, he got, intentionally fouled at the end of the game. So he took 2 free throws, took no 3-pointers. He does his damage right there between 4 feet and 20 feet. Like he does his damage right there. He's, he had a funny broken play where he had a big dunk, and he had another one inside where he scored, and he had also scored it out of the post with a hook shot. But for the most part, he was torching the Hawks just by shooting jump shots. Clint Capella a couple times didn't close out to him because like he doesn't guard people where he has to close out to 17 feet. It's like in most NBA games, a guy taking a long two, you're like, great. DeAndre Ayton is exceptional at that spot. And I think the difference he just looks more engaged because the Blazers are letting him cook with the ingredients he prefers. It's not a huge diet of pick and rolls, but I will say one thing I've noticed, DeAndre's gotten way better at setting screens. He's not a bone-crushing screen setter. Like he is not going to set a screen and just like absolutely light someone up and give Anfernee Simons like 40 feet of room by cracking someone with a screen. but he makes more contact than he has early in the year. He's getting better at flipping the screen, like seeing, like, running up to the play where he's supposed to set a screen and realizing, okay, flip it, and like he has good feet and he's fast. Like this should be a skill of his, and I think he's gotten better at it, and he's more in tune to it. He's more in tune to it because he's going to get the ball in his spots after he sets the right type of screen. Like if he makes contact, it helps him as well. I think he's really dialed into, here's where I'm going to get it. I'm going to get to eat. I'm going to get to do what I do and play the way I want to play. The Blazers figured it out, and it's allowed him to be the best version of himself. A lot of the knock on Deandre Ayton, and even this year in the Blazers uniform, certainly knock on him before he got here, was that you don't always get the best out of him. Like, he's not always playing at his like with 100% motor, with his engine revving all the way. And I think there were times, particularly in December, where his motor just wasn't revving. And it's like, he's really not playing that hard. But now that he's back from injury, we haven't seen one of those games. He's had a couple stinkers in there, but he hasn't had games where it's like, is Deandre playing hard? I think particularly on offense, his assertiveness to, I know that I'm going to get the shots I want, has really fueled him, and he's been really solid in this game, or in this stretch, and particularly the last handful of games. Like, he's almost had 2 out of the last 3 games. He's had 30. He's had 30 plus and 19 boards. Like, he's almost had 30-20 games in 2 out of his last 3. It's like, Kelly Olynyk and Chris Boucher and Clint Capella and Bruno Fernando. Like, he's not maybe not doing against the best players in the world, but 30 and 20 against anybody in the NBA is a freaking good night, and he was really good tonight. I thought Anfernee Simons, this was an impressive night for him because of how he started. Like I said, the first time he touched the ball, he turned it over and kind of like a soft, they're aggressive on him on screens all night. And he comes off a screen, the first play of the game, they run a pick and roll for him, and he just throws like a pass that's not strong enough out of double teams. It's been a problem for him all year. It's kind of just like the strength of getting out of double teams. First time he touches it, turns the ball over. 1 of 5 to start the game. And it's like, I'm to get my notebook out, and I'm like, okay, I guess we're going to talk about a bad Ant night again. Like, and then he was just so good. He was so good in the final 3 quarters. Immediately 5 of 9 in the second quarter. Finished with 16 on 6 of 14 in the first half. But again, like 5 of 9 in the second quarter and got going. 5 of 9 for 14 in the second quarter, got going. Like, and then he kept it going. Finished with 21 after halftime, helped bring the Blazers home. Like I said, huge 3-pointer with about 2.5 minutes left. And I thought his playmaking was solid. Like, he wasn't incredible, but I thought he made the right play a couple times. He had one spectacular pass that didn't lead to an assist, a fast break fast break right-handed bounce pass dart to Matisse Thybulle, who missed the layup. But like, that was the best pass of the game. Wasn't even an assist, but I thought he just making the right play, and quickly making the right play. And I think that's the thing for Ant. Sometimes he will either, he won't make a read right away, and then it's like, oh, he's ball hogging. And I don't think it's necessarily like he's got this tunnel vision to the rim. I think his processing is sometimes a little bit slow. And the more he gets a chance to do it, is like the processing can be quicker. And if you make the simple pass quickly, it can be really effective. And I thought he made a bunch of simple passes quickly tonight and was really solid. 2 minor things here. Scoot was awful in this game. This was a awful Scoot Henderson game. 17 and a half minutes. He came off the bench. He's on because they're playing a back-to-back, he's on a minutes restriction. There's no way when he was on a minutes restriction before, he played 26 minutes. So I assume he's like a half the game type of thing, 24, 25 in that range. He didn't play down the stretch because he was awful, which stinks, right? Because I want him on the court like in important moments, like in a 3-point game with 2.5 minutes left. I want Scoot out there learning how to play at this type of game. But he was like not. They needed Matisse Thybulle out there, game-saving Matisse Thybulle out there. It was time, and they were like leaned on a little more on Chris Murray, who was not good either on offense. Like, Chris Murray does good stuff on defense every time he plays, but he turned the ball over 6 times, and he was just generally bad on the offensive end. But Scoot didn't deserve to play down the stretch. Whatever my personal preferences are, he just didn't deserve to play down the stretch. He was really bad in this game. 1 of 8, 2 points, 0 of 4 from 3. One of those threes is is a heave. He took an end of the quarter shot. So like, let's call it 1 of 7, 0 of 3, if you really want to get into the math. 1 of 7, 0 of 3 is also a bad game. He was bad in this game. Kind of troubling because I don't think it was that, it wasn't just the bricks. Like, who cares really about the bricks? It was the decision making, driving into the paint without a plan and without I'm going to, he did this against the Celtics the other night too. I'm going to drive right into Luke Cornett. Oh, he's big, and I thought he did it tonight again too, driving without a plan. When he gets his feet under him and he takes shots that like look like he's on balance, he can be a decent pull-up shooter. And then he just like gets either too deep into the paint or too much in a hurry, and his feet are just a mess, and he doesn't have the shooting touch to make up for bad feet. And I think he can, I think it's that I'm going to drive kind of downhill attack mentality, where it's like you need a plan or you need a counter if the plan doesn't work. And he doesn't have, he hasn't showed a ton of that this year. And I thought tonight was particularly bad after just a kind of normal rookie struggle game against the Celtics. I thought it was just a straight up bad night against the Hawks. Ryan Rupert didn't play. I don't think this is that big of a deal, but I do find it annoying. Justin Minaya played over him. I mentioned that I was going to complain every time down the stretch of the season, every time Minaya plays over Rupert. Minaya played 15 minutes, 1 of 3, 2 points. Not remarkable. He's not remarkably bad, not meaningfully good. He's not a very good offensive player, but he brings it on defense. I watched the last 2 Ryan Rupert games. I watched him. I see all his minutes. He was bad in those games. Like, I'm not surprised that he's not playing. He wasn't good. And I think, Chauncey Billups wants to win and all those things. He wasn't good. You're not going to play someone who's bad. I just think at this point in the season, and maybe Joe Cronin doesn't believe in this, and maybe this is the right thing, and for sort of the health of the franchise, not meddling is the right thing. But I would tell the coach you have to play Ryan Rupert. I'd say you have to, because Justin Minaya is just probably more effective than him now, going to make less mistakes. Rookies who generally play are guys who are going to make less mistakes and be more competitive on defense. And Minaya is certainly that. Then Rupert, he's a lower mistake guy, and he's a better defender. In terms of just executing, Rupert has certainly a lot of more higher defensive potential and tools. He's just not very good at it right now. But it's just play the youngster, play the teenager. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's not going to torpedo Rupert's development or anything like that. And I don't even think it's if this wasn't a daily podcast, it wouldn't get mentioned on a weekly show. I don't maybe it would. Maybe people are riled up about that. But I think this is the specifics of the minutia of Locked On Blazers that we're mentioning this to some extent. But play him. Again, I don't think I think it's very minor. It's kind of when I buried it at the end of my thoughts, but it's something I noticed, and I promised I would mention it, so I am mentioning it because how could I not notice? Okay, I want to talk about something that has been a trend across the league. That's what we'll do to close the show. Join me in that third segment, won't you? First, let me tell you about Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on a 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with that 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. There is some reporting going around the league the last couple weeks. First from Blazers broadcast partner, broadcast contributor, Tom Haberstroh, who writes Substack. Side note, Tom's persona on his Substack is so deeply different from how he is presented on the broadcast. No further comment. And also Ethan Sherwood-Strauss, who writes his own Substack. These are both stories behind paywalls, but it's good reporting, so I'm going to share it here. I'm not going to share the deep details. Unfortunately, the way journalism works now is that you got to have a cajillion subscriptions because that's the way this thing that's the way people can keep on reporting. That's life. I wish it wasn't that way. And guess what? Locked On Blazers free every day wherever you get podcasts, 5 days a week, if nothing else. But both Haberstroh and Ethan Sherwood-Strauss wrote about the downturn in scoring across the league since a monster early season when we saw 4 60-plus games in December. And it was like every night the scores were 133, 122. And, some old fogey folks were getting worried about it. They were, I'm sure you have someone in your life who remembers sort of the NBA from, if not the early 21st century, then even before that. But you don't have to go back that far to the early, 20 years ago. I guess plenty of college age kids were born in 2003, but right around then, the league, there's some gross games. There were some Pacers Pistons playoff games that ended in the 70s. But I think people miss those more in theory than they do in practice. But I think scoring was getting a little out of control, and moreover, the perception of scoring was getting out of control. That's the actual problem. The perception of particularly casual observers was that the NBA doesn't give a hoot about defense, and they had juiced the league so much for offense that it was the league was becoming a farce. So what did they do? Well, according to the reporting from Haberstroh and Strauss, stop calling fouls. Haberstroh notes that the free throw attempts from December to February were on a steady decline from as high as 23.5 in November to down under 21 in February. And you might think that's not very many, but it is. The sort of statisticians will tell you that free throw attempts, first of all, incredibly valuable. You know who else will tell you that? My man Dean Smith. Shout out to Tar Heel legend. But getting in the bonus, not only you get free throws, but from shooting fouls, but you can get some non-shooting fouls. Offenses get juiced when teams are in the bonus. Calling more fouls leads to the higher scoring, and it leads to, you defend differently when you're in the bonus, and teams are just, there is a decade of research that suggests that teams' offensive ratings surge when they're in the bonus. Part of that is free throws are often the best ways to score. So the league, at least according to some speculation from Strauss and Haberstroh, has just kind of cracked down on some ticky-tack fouls, allowing for a more physical brand of basketball, and because they're allowing for a little more physicality and they're calling fewer fouls, we're getting games that are a little bit cleaner. The Blazers and Celtics just played a game the other night where they took a combined 23 free throws. The Blazers tonight on their own took 24, but on Monday night's game, just a clean game between them and the Celtics, and maybe a trend that has been in the works now post All-Star break by the NBA that the movement is in. I think sort of my general thoughts on this is that I think it's fine. I think it's a perception problem more than a product problem. I'll name drop someone here. A friend of mine and longtime media member here in Portland, Joe Freeman, asked me last night. He asked me, but just sort of my thoughts on the general product across the league. And I said that for me, someone who watches a lot of it, I watch every Blazer game, and I watch a ton of League Pass games when they're not playing. I love the NBA, and I'm a junkie, right? If I get I'm not watching a lot of episodic television. I'm watching the NBA like a nerd. I love it. I think there's an incredible amount of talent in the league. But I said for casual observers, which I would classify Joe at this stage in his career, no longer covering the NBA full time, that it doesn't always feel that way. It feels like that the three-point shot has kind of bastardized the sport a little bit, and that there's a real homogenization of the offenses in the league. And I think there's certainly, if you're a viewer who appreciates the great details, there's a ton of nuance in how, all teams are hunting the same kind of shots, dunks and corner threes and catch and shoot shots, but the way that they hunt those threes is vastly different. But that's for the people who are in the weeds like you and I. Most of you, some of you maybe not, but many of you out there listening to this particular podcast at this time of year, you are in the weeds, you're deep in it, you love the minutia, love the nuance. but I think the sort of larger perception and sort of the casual fan doesn't love it as much. And when they see games that are 135, 128, they just go to one of those sports yelling shows in the morning. The sports yelling shows, they obviously didn't stay up to watch Hawks Blazers. They're just going to scream about there's no defense in the league. So whether this is real, whether the league and Mark Stein over on his Substack, I'm just shouting out anyone who's has a subscription-based newsletter these days. What has the world come to? All of these people literally used to work at ESPN. But Stein wrote about it, and he asked the league. He said, "Is this real? Is this like?" And there's been some reporting on it. Would you like to comment? And they said, declined to comment and said, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. Nothing the comment was that nothing has changed and declined to elaborate further. There's been no call from the league to call less fouls. There's been nothing. There's no push to make, allow for a little more physicality. I'll say this. I think a league where there is a little more physicality is good, but I don't think a league where I think the problem with officiating is not that there are too many foul calls or too few foul calls or anything like that. The problem with the officiating and our sort of feeling about the game is consistency. If the league allows for a consistent level of physicality and that continues through the playoffs and they officiate stars and role players exactly the same way, they won't. But if they do that through the playoffs, great. The league will be in a really good spot and people won't care if you score 130 or if you score 98. Because the game will be good and it'll be enjoyable, and people like close games with stakes. I think that's what we've learned. If you look closely at television ratings, what do they like? What do teams like? They like LeBron James, they like Steph Curry, and they like games with stakes. Things like the in-season tournament and the play-in games people watch them. Playoffs, obviously, people watch them. Those do numbers. Low stakes games don't do numbers, and games that are close in the nature of our interconnected world. You can text your friend and say, "Hey, turn the game on. There's 3 minutes left." Is awesome. Or they're like looking at social media and they find out. Close games and games with stakes. If there's consistency, close games with stakes, this is a good gamble. If we get back to an inconsistent whistle, it doesn't matter if they're calling less fouls and it's more physicality, the inconsistency will still burn the league in the end. In general, I think putting a slight cap on scoring is fine. I think normalizing games scoring 110 is there's been a big drop from, as Stein reported, in season, almost a 3-point drop from the beginning of season to now, from the early season scoring, which was like up at 117 and to now, which is we're below 115 across the league. That's a big number to drop in scoring average in a few months. And Stein has more reporting on the specifics of that if you subscribe to the Stein line. But I think in general, the thing that the league needs is consistency. They don't need a certain style of play. They need a consistent product that you can know what you're going to get and know this is a foul, and it's a foul on LeBron James, and it's also a foul on Austin Reeves, and it's also a foul on Duop Reith, and it's also a foul on Bruno Fernando, and on down the line. But if you want to check out those scoring drought stories, I'll link them in the episode description for this very episode. How about this? Come back tomorrow. We're going to talk about the Blazers game against the New York Knicks. They play a second night of a back-to-back against the Knicks on Thursday, and then we'll do a little bit of look ahead because we're getting to the conference tournaments of the men's NCAA field, and we will talk about prospects to watch over the weekend and moving forward and have a little fun with the Tankathon machine. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.